You can tell everything about a man in a single quiet moment at night. Not when he's performing, not when he's trying to impress, but when the world slows down and his habits reveal what he really believes about his body, his confidence, and his connection with a woman. And the truth is, most men miss this completely, because they chase intensity instead of consistency, excitement instead of presence, and they never realize that the smallest, most overlooked nighttime ritual can quietly shape how they show up in intimacy, how long they last, how deeply they connect, and how a woman feels when she's close to them. What most people call performance is rarely about raw physical ability. It's about awareness, patience, and the relationship a man has with his own body when no one is watching. And this is where the idea of a nighttime oil routine becomes something much deeper than just a habit. It becomes a signal, a message you send to yourself that you respect your body enough to slow down, to care for it, to understand it, instead of rushing through it like a task that needs to be completed. And women feel that difference instantly, because intimacy is not just physical contact. It's emotional presence, translated through touch, through rhythm, through control, and through the ability to stay grounded instead of getting lost in pressure or anxiety. When a man takes even 10 minutes before sleep to intentionally connect with his body, applying oil slowly, breathing deeply, noticing tension instead of ignoring it, something begins to shift at a psychological level that most men never consciously recognize. Because this is not about the oil itself, as much as it is about training your nervous system to relax instead of react, to respond instead of rush. And over time, that calm control becomes visible in the bedroom, in ways that are subtle but powerful. Because a man who is relaxed can last longer, can feel more, can adjust his pace, can read a woman's body instead of being trapped inside his own urgency. The mistake many older men make is believing that performance declines only because of age, when in reality it is often the result of years of tension, stress, and disconnection from their own physical awareness. And this is where the nighttime routine becomes almost like a reset, a way to slowly rebuild that connection without pressure, without expectation, just through consistency. Because the body responds to what you repeatedly show it. And when you repeatedly show it calm attention, it starts to mirror that calm back to you in moments that actually matter. There is also something deeply psychological about the act of caring for yourself in a quiet, intentional way, because it shifts your identity from someone who is worried about performance to someone who is in control of his experience. And that shift is something women can feel, even if they can't explain it. Because confidence in intimacy is rarely loud or aggressive. It is steady, patient, and grounded. It comes from knowing you are not rushing toward an outcome, but fully present in the moment. And presence is what creates real attraction over time. Many men overlook how much stress they carry into the night, how much tension sits in their body long after the day has ended. And when that tension is ignored, it shows up exactly where they don't want it, in their ability to stay present, in their stamina, in their sensitivity. And this is why the routine is not just physical, but also mental. Because as you slow down and focus on your breathing while applying oil, you are teaching your mind to detach from pressure and expectations. And that detachment is what allows true control to develop. Over time, this simple habit begins to create a feedback loop where relaxation leads to better performance builds confidence, and that confidence reduces anxiety, making relaxation even easier. And suddenly, what once felt like something you had to force becomes something that flows naturally. And that is the difference between men who struggle silently and men who seem effortlessly in control of themselves. There is also an emotional layer to this that many men ignore, because intimacy is not just about physical satisfaction. It is about how safe and connected a woman feels in your presence. And when you are calm, when your touch is deliberate instead of rushed, when your energy is steady instead of anxious, it creates a space where she can relax as well. And that mutual relaxation is what deepens the experience beyond something temporary into something memorable. The irony is that the more a man chases performance directly, the more pressure he creates. And pressure is the one thing that quietly destroys control. But when he shifts his focus to small, consistent habits, like a nighttime routine, the performance improves as a side effect, rather than the main goal. And that shift changes everything, because it removes the fear of failure and replaces it with a sense of quiet confidence. Even the act of choosing an oil, warming it in your hands, and applying it slowly becomes a kind of ritual that signals to your brain that the day is ending and a different state of awareness is beginning. And that transition is important because it helps separate stress from rest, urgency from calm, and over time your body begins to associate nighttime with relaxation instead of tension, which has a direct impact on how you feel and perform later. What most men don't realize is that consistency matters far more than intensity in this process, because the body adapts slowly but deeply, and small daily actions create long-term changes that no quick fix can replicate. And this is why the routine works, not because it is dramatic, but because it is steady. And steadiness is what builds real control. As this habit becomes part of your life, you start to notice subtle changes, not just physically but mentally. You become more aware of your breathing, more aware of your pacing, more aware of how your body responds to different levels of stimulation. And that awareness is what allows you to adjust in real time, instead of reacting automatically. And that ability to adjust is what separates average experiences from deeply satisfying ones. There is also a sense of discipline that comes from maintaining a nightly routine, and that discipline carries over into other areas of your life, including how you approach relationships, how you communicate, and how you handle moments of pressure, because you are training yourself to stay calm and consistent rather than impulsive and reactive, and that training shows up in ways that go far beyond the routine itself. The truth is that most men are never taught to connect with their bodies. In this way, they are taught to perform, to impress, to achieve, but not to listen, not to slow down, not to build awareness. And that lack of awareness is what creates many of the issues they later try to fix with shortcuts that never address the root cause. This is why something as simple as a nighttime oil routine can feel almost transformative over time, because it addresses the foundation rather than the symptoms. And when the foundation is strong, everything built on top of it becomes more stable, more reliable, and more satisfying. And the most powerful part of this is that it is completely within your control. It does not depend on external validation. It does not require anyone else. It is a private commitment you make to yourself. And that kind of commitment builds a quiet confidence that no external approval can replace. Because you know you are putting in the effort consistently, and that knowledge changes how you carry yourself, how you think, and how you show up in intimate moments. As this routine becomes familiar, something subtle but powerful begins to unfold beneath the surface, and it is not something you can measure instantly. It is something you feel building quietly over days and weeks, a deeper sense of control, a stronger awareness of your own rhythm, and a calmness that starts to replace the tension that once followed you into intimate moments. Because what you are really training is not just your body, but your ability to stay present without rushing toward an outcome. And this is where most men unknowingly lose their advantage. They treat intimacy like a destination instead of an experience. And in doing so, they disconnect from the very sensations that could guide them. But when you slow down every night, and build that connection intentionally, you begin to understand your own responses in a way that cannot be learned through theory alone. There is a difference between reacting and responding, and that difference becomes clear when your body is no longer overwhelmed by urgency, when you can feel the build of sensation without immediately needing to act on it, when you can hold that energy instead of releasing it too quickly. And this is where the real transformation happens, because control is not about suppression, it is about awareness. It is about knowing exactly where you are in the moment, and being able to adjust without panic. And that ability only comes when your nervous system is trained to stay calm under stimulation, something this nighttime routine quietly reinforces over time. You may start to notice that your breathing changes, becoming slower and more intentional, and this alone has a profound effect on your performance, because breath is directly connected to control. When it is shallow and rushed, everything speeds up. But when it is deep and steady, your entire body follows that rhythm. And this is why incorporating slow breathing into your routine is not just a relaxation technique. It is a form of training that carries into every intimate interaction you have. There is also an element of trust that begins to build. Not just trust in your body, but trust in your ability to handle the moment without losing yourself in it. And that trust removes a layer of anxiety that many men carry silently. The fear of not lasting long enough, not being present enough, not being enough in general. And when that fear starts to fade, what replaces it is a kind of quiet confidence that does not need to be proven. It simply exists. And that existence changes the entire dynamic between you and a woman, because she can feel when you are not trying to impress her, but instead sharing the moment with her. The routine also teaches patience, and patience is one of the most underrated qualities in intimacy, because it allows you to build tension gradually, to explore instead of rush, to notice small reactions instead of chasing big ones. And when you develop this patience, you create an experience that feels more intentional and more connected, something that stands out in a world where most interactions are fast and surface level. Over time, you begin to realize that performance is not about pushing harder, but about holding back at the right moments, about knowing when to slow down and when to increase intensity. And that kind of control is only possible when you are deeply aware of your own body. And that awareness is exactly what this routine is designed to cultivate. There is also a physical benefit that comes from consistent care, improved circulation, reduced tension, and a greater sensitivity that allows you to feel more without being overwhelmed. And this balance is crucial, because too little sensitivity leads to disconnection, while too much without control leads to quick overwhelm. But when both are balanced, you enter a state where you can fully engage without losing control. And that state is where the most satisfying experiences happen. Another important aspect is how this routine affects your mindset over time, because repetition creates belief. And when you repeat an action that reinforces control and awareness every night, your mind begins to accept that this is who you are, someone who is in control, someone who is present, someone who does not rush or panic, and that identity shapes your behavior in ways that go far beyond the routine itself, influencing how you approach not just intimacy, but challenges in general. You may also find that this practice creates a stronger connection between your mind and body, something that is often weakened by stress, distractions, and a fast-paced lifestyle. And when that connection is restored, everything becomes more aligned. Your thoughts, your actions, your responses. And that alignment is what creates a sense of ease that others can feel when they are around you. It is important to understand that this is not an instant solution. It is a process. And like any process, it requires consistency. But the advantage is that the effort is minimal while the impact is cumulative. And over time, those small efforts add up to significant changes that feel natural rather than forced. You are not trying to become someone else. You are simply removing the tension and distractions that were preventing you from being fully present in the first place. And that shift makes everything feel more effortless, because you are no longer fighting against your own body. There is also something deeply grounding about having a nightly ritual, something that belongs to you, that you return to regardless of how your day went. And that consistency creates a sense of stability that carries into other areas of your life, making you less reactive and more centered. And that centeredness is one of the most attractive qualities a man can have, because it signals strength without needing to prove it. As you continue this routine, you begin to notice patterns in your own responses, moments where tension builds, moments where you can relax. And this awareness allows you to make small adjustments that lead to better control. And these adjustments become second nature over time, happening without conscious effort, because your body has been trained through repetition to respond in a certain way. What once felt like something unpredictable becomes something you can navigate with confidence. And that confidence changes how you approach intimacy, because you are no longer worried about losing control. You trust yourself to handle whatever happens. And that trust creates a level of freedom that allows you to fully enjoy the experience, rather than analyzing it in real time. This is where the true value of the routine reveals itself, not in dramatic changes, but in subtle shifts that accumulate over time, creating a foundation of control, awareness, and confidence that supports every intimate interaction you have. And once that foundation is in place, everything else becomes easier, more natural, and more fulfilling. And as all of this begins to settle into who you are, not just something you do, but something you carry into every interaction, the final shift happens almost without you noticing. Because what started as a simple nighttime habit quietly transforms into a deeper understanding of intimacy itself. And you begin to realize that the real difference between an average experience and a powerful one has very little to do with physical intensity, and everything to do with emotional presence, control, and the ability to stay connected without rushing ahead or falling behind. And this is where most men finally see what they had been missing all along. Not a technique, not a trick, but a relationship with their own body that allows everything else to fall into place naturally. When you have spent weeks or months reinforcing calmness, awareness, and control through your nightly routine, you no longer enter intimate moments with uncertainty. You enter them with a quiet sense of readiness, not because you expect perfection, but because you trust your ability to adapt. And that trust removes the need to overthink. And when overthinking disappears, what remains is pure presence. And presence is what allows you to notice the smallest details. The subtle shifts in a woman's breathing, the way her body responds to different levels of touch, the moments where slowing down creates more intensity than speeding up ever could. And this level of awareness turns intimacy into something that feels deeply connected rather than mechanical. There is also a profound shift in how you handle pressure, because pressure no longer feels like something you need to escape from. It becomes something you can move through without losing control. And that ability changes everything, because it means you are no longer reacting out of fear or urgency. You are responding with confidence and awareness. And this response creates a rhythm that feels natural and engaging, something that builds over time instead of peaking too quickly and fading away. What becomes clear at this stage is that stamina is not just about lasting longer. It is about managing energy, about knowing when to hold back and when to lean in, about creating a flow that keeps both you and your partner fully engaged without reaching a point of overwhelm. And this flow is something that can only be developed through consistent practice and awareness. The very things your nightly routine has been quietly strengthening all along. You may also notice that your confidence no longer depends on external validation. It does not rise and fall based on a single experience. It remains steady because it is built on something deeper, something internal. And that stability makes you more relaxed, more open, and more capable of creating meaningful connections. Because you are no longer trying to prove yourself, you are simply expressing yourself in the moment. This is also where emotional intimacy begins to deepen. Because when you are fully present and in control, you create a space where a woman feels safe to relax and open up. And that mutual relaxation leads to a connection that goes beyond the physical. Something that lingers even after the moment has passed. And this lingering connection is what creates lasting impressions. The kind that makes someone want to come back, not just for the experience, but for how they felt within it. Over time, you start to see that the routine was never just about improving performance. It was about building a foundation that supports every aspect of intimacy, from physical control to emotional connection. And once that foundation is strong, everything else becomes easier to navigate because you are no longer starting from a place of tension or uncertainty. There is also a sense of mastery that develops, not in the sense of being perfect, but in the sense of being deeply familiar with your own body and responses. And this familiarity allows you to move with confidence and intention, making adjustments naturally without needing to think about them. And this natural flow is what makes experiences feel effortless and deeply satisfying. You begin to understand that true performance is not something you force. It is something that emerges when all the underlying elements are aligned. Your body, your mind, your awareness, and your ability to stay present. And when these elements are aligned, the experience becomes less about achieving a specific outcome and more about enjoying the process itself. And ironically, it is this shift in focus that leads to the very outcomes most men are chasing. In the end, what this nighttime oil routine offers is not a quick fix, but a long-term transformation, a way to reconnect with yourself, to build control without pressure, to develop confidence without needing validation, and to create intimate experiences that feel genuine, connected, and deeply satisfying. And the beauty of it is that it all starts with something simple, something quiet, something you do for yourself when no one else is watching, because those are the moments that shape who you are the most. When you commit to this process, you are not just improving a single aspect of your life. You are redefining how you approach intimacies, how you handle pressure, and how you connect with others. And that redefinition is what creates lasting change. The kind that does not fade with time, but continues to grow stronger with consistency. And this is why the men who understand and apply this principle stand out without needing to say a word. Because their presence speaks for them, their calmness speaks for them, and their ability to stay grounded in the moment creates an experience that feels rare and unforgettable. And when you step back and look at the entire journey, it becomes clear that the power was never in the oil itself. It was in the intention behind it, the consistency of the practice, and the awareness it helped you build. Because those are the things that truly transform performance. From something uncertain into something reliable, from something stressful into something enjoyable, and from something you chase into something you naturally embody.